My name is Vince McIntyre.
And your age?
I'm 67 years old. I'm a farmer, and I come from the west of Ireland. And my childhood was, I have fond memories of my childhood and going and the things we did, and my experiences with, how we did things, and I when I come to Southern Ontario, I got into. I work for farmers. Everybody had tractors, and we did. My father, he was a horseman, and a neighbour of ours, when I was probably about 5 or 6 years old, got a tractor, and we heard this engine machine going way up the way. So my brother and I headed up there to see what was going on, and then there was this big blue tractor, and we were so taken with that it was new, something new, yeah, something mysterious. And I remember my dad wanted to drive this tractor because he used horses. He never used it being a. So the owner of the tractor let him on there, and I guess there was a mowing machine on the back, and my dad gets on the tractor and shows him, puts it in gear, and then off he goes down. It was a steep bit of ground. It was a bad choice. And then I see him going down the hill, and then he's pulling back on the steering. just. Fortunately, the mowing arm flopped down and hooked behind a bank or something like that and stalled him. It was in low rev. That's some of my first impressions of machinery. Yeah. I come to Southern Ontario. I got into. I work for farmers. The immigrant kids. It was quite common for them to work at an early age, because that's what we did in the old country. And I got to dislike farming. I don't know if that affected my attitude or not, but I got good at a tractor when I was 12 years old. We went to work in a market garden closer to Toronto, and that was already being industrialized. So it was totally monotonous. We were just robots. And that's when I began to hate it, began to hate farming. And I swore I would never do it in my life again. I did a lot of tractor driving. I found it quite lonely and boring. In 1979, I went to an old farmer in the Cusp, um, Christopher Spicer. He was an old Englishman, and he'd been farming over there since 1948. He'd come back from the Second World War, and he was a veteran, and he got land over there. And I went into his. I went to buy vegetables of him in 1979 because my girlfriend knew about him. And I walked into his farmyard on Halloween, and it was like going back 100 years. I wanted to go work for him, but he wouldn't have it. He was just so organized in his own system. But that's when I changed my mind about farming. That's when I thought, hey, I might do this someday. To me, the biggest tragedy is that there's people today that they don't know why they're alive. I think that when you look at what industrial farming has done to people and made them so dependent. Like you go to Central America or Mexico, and most of like I was in Mexico like in the 1960s, and up in the mountains there was lots of people and lots of little plots of land and gardens, and you see people coming down with their loads of stuff for the market. And today it's all industrialized, pretty much. So all the people are gone. They're gone to Mexico City to work in plastic factories, and that's supposed to be an improvement. When we depend on an industrial system for our survival, we might protest all that and think that we're defeated and so on, but it still works, eh? But if we want to get our power back and be able to do things for ourselves and not pay other people to live our lives for us. We have to be devoted. We have to learn stuff and stick with it. You know, when I hit my mid-40s, I decided, you know, this work that I'm doing is totally meaningless to me, you know. I decided I'm going to try not to have to do this. And that's when I decided to farm, eh? And when I come to farm myself, and I like horses, and you know, I like the idea of horse farming, and it's a clean way to do it, and it also takes a lot of skill. I decided that's the way I wanted to do it. I think it's a lesson right in the horses. It keeps you humble, because you know, with a tractor, people get on a big machine and they have that power, but with a horse you have to be polite. You have to ask them. You have to get their willingness and attention. I'm an old man, and I suppose if I had spent the last 20-some years sitting on a tractor, I wouldn't be as strong as I am today, you know. And so that's, you know, people go and exercise. I don't do that. I do my work. My first year of farming was quite a difficult year. It was like I got a new piece of land. My horses were pretty much not very well trained for farming. They were, you know, I had them kind of harness broken, all that, and then I had to find you know, some implements and a mowing machine to cut the hay, and I wanted to do it with the horses, I planted the potatoes out there, about a half an acre of potatoes, and then it got really dry. So somebody told me that there used to be an irrigation ditch down through the woods and out into this field one time. So I went and worked in there was a horrendous mosquito year, and I went and worked in the mosquitoes and opened up the ditch and dug up her driveway and put a culvert under there to let the ditch flow through. And then I ploughed out a furrow out to the potato field, and then ran the water down between the rows, eh? And that took a lot of effort. And I didn't know if it was going to work or not, but it did. So that was the first year, and of course we didn't make very much money. And then after that it got I started learning more too, and the horses got better, and I got more confident in the fact that maybe I might be able to do it. Going out there crawling rows in July is hard work, and if you're doing it just because you're going to get $11 an hour, it's not enough for that kind of work. But if you're doing it so you can learn to do it well, and someday do it yourself, then it's worth your while doing it. I go out there and I do what I can, and if it doesn't work, I've tried. Yeah. And I want to be human. I want to be, you know, not too focused on business or money or any of that. You know, I prefer to do things the more uncertain way. You know, I just someday maybe decide that, hey, I've had enough. You know, like you're arm wrestling and you and you figure, well, I can't beat him and he can't beat me, so let's give up. So that's probably the way I'll go down.